what related get son fire the person Arami John Tabichi, along with the message and the Togo essay. And the Tabara Johnson at Tabe, Tongoni with Son Gigi Batista, Tongoni and Bay, or that Son Jin Tanga, because of it. Son Jin Tongoni, Son Jin Tangi, or that the Digi, Jigger Homo with the G. Again, the Digital taking the Dio Marse. What then that is not a bed. Been a course of the Johnny Data. Again, Naruto no Kanala, Imagina, Congress and the bed. Citizen. What that citizen is a rebellion. Sana, Rinpoche, Sana to the Bay, Arabia, Jade. Saji Goma Tabashi Yamato, the Tombu, the Tombu, the Saji, budget at the Yamarase, and that Saji, Gianni Tilted, and the Sierra Legitan, the Sabu de Tapena, Marua, Mena, Ribachi, Chadi, the song again, the edition with the Tomo, the Chitishi, Chivia. And the nation book Nagos nation which you are the way. Long creed to make another not to say appreciate. Long creed to make another not to share that. But being by energy that the lazy way. The major tone and telling about your native policy. Never know. Since they share the people order, who can the Wanda was a Tunga City, suggest to my Tunga, the Narunako, and the Chiang, the Soviet Tunga, the Swat, and the Hatapi, and that the succeeded Shishikawa, the Kaken, said the one that the semi of poverty.
At the outset, as always, take a moment to develop proper motivation. Preferably in tune with bodhicitta, aspiring to attain Buddhahood so that one could be of ultimate benefit to all sentient beings. And so far we have covered the practices up to the middle level practitioners, and then yesterday we slightly touched on the path of the greater vehicle practitioner with slight mention of how to develop a concern, a broad-based concern that is extended to all sentient beings, and on the basis of that, how we develop compassion, universal compassion, and gradually leading up to the cultivation of bodhicitta. In this regard, the great Indian philosopher Nagarjuna had said that for those who want to cultivate the ultimate aim for oneself and for others, there is no other way but the cultivation of universal love, bodhicitta, and cultivation of an understanding of emptiness. He says that these three are the indispensable causes for attaining Buddhahood for oneself and others. And while describing this, he characterizes these three indispensable causes individually by saying that this compassion that he is referring to as the indispensable cause for developing for what do you call a gradual advancement to bodhicitta has to be a universal universal compassion, a compassion which doesn't know any distinction, any discrimination among sentient beings. And then on the basis of this kind of compassion, one should then go ahead and develop bodhicitta. And this bodhicitta should be so strongly built that it cannot be at all, wavered, cannot be moved by any other kind of wayward thoughts. So it should be established like that of a Mount Meru. And then, along with these two cultivations, one should develop an unmistaken understanding of the reality. namely emptiness. And this emptiness should be understood in its proper perspective, free from the two extremes. And here, among the three, he very clearly specifies that among the three, it is the universal compassion which is the root. It is from the root of but the universal compassion that one can then eventually hope for developing bodhicitta, and then also hope for developing an unmistaken view of understanding, a view of emptiness. And in this regard, a quote has been cited from the work of the Acharya Dharmakirti, where he says that the Buddhahood is to be developed through familiarization or through development of the great compassion. And it is the great compassion which is the root cause. It is like the root cause, the doorway to one's eventual advancement to the state of Buddhahood. And just as the quotes go in the scriptures, where it says that Buddhahood is neither granted by somebody else, nor is it held by someone that you have to request to be given that to you. Rather, it is solely dependent upon one's own effort. Thus, again, referring back to the need of cultivating both the universal compassion, eventually developing bodhicitta, and then along with them, conjoining them with an unmistaken understanding of emptiness. Through the combination of the three, one can then only hope for advancement to the state of Buddhahood, which is the ultimate state that can be of ultimate benefit for oneself and others. Take the case of our own historical Buddha. He wasn't Buddha from the beginningless time. He was, like us, as ordinary, as confused at one time. But through his own effort, through his cultivation of the universal compassion, bodhicitta, and the unmistaken view of emptiness, and through his efforts for so long a time, he then eventually excelled all of us and attained the state of Buddhahood, and thus being of ultimate, reliable benefit to all sentient beings. Again here, to remind ourselves of the three, the root cause, the root beginning, initial effort should be in developing universal compassion. And as we discussed this earlier, universal compassion, a sense of concern, genuine sense of spontaneous concern towards all sentient beings and wishing all sentient beings to be free from suffering, can only be generated, can only be experienced once we have understood the sufferings on our own individual self and have developed a strong urge to be freed from that. And thus, beginning from such concern, focus on oneself, then one can hope to extend it genuinely towards all sentient beings, and then hope for a genuine universal compassion to be generated within us, which then serves as the stepping stone to eventually develop bodhicitta, and then together with the understanding of emptiness, understanding of reality, the three can be then a viable source, viable cause for one's eventual advancement to the state of Buddhahood, which is what a great practitioner wishes for the benefit of oneself and others.
世界它这边的话呢，那么中国的条件， 니케데 수요에서는 지테는 사지 정된 세우다 소지는 현대 요만이 사지 단계에 대답하던 사지지 훨씬 더 많이나 베스트에 단계에 대답도와 아직 그저 단계에 세거에 유도선 인터넷에 가서게 소지 전대지 소지 아트데 소지도 되게 옛날 요바다 단계에 소지도 네번째 모두 아파트들이 사진을 보내줬는데 옛날에 거박합니다. 삼박합니다. 저는 조합 주세요. 되게 되게 조화라나 몇 시간 조화 걸으면 손에 터진도 주가 터진 정상이 안티데이 사진이 시제 가서 그게 치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치치 Typically, we use it now. They take it up to the bed. Sijay Rama was having a salad of beauty. Sajik does something. Sijay Dio gave it to get out to get to the bed. Kitchen to the tea. With the water, the other the big bed. With changing with yoga. Ultimately, the Sajik कुसों तो की चाह समापन चाह रोमांच चाह नहीं बचते केवल जो चाह नहीं बचे दिनेचे बेटा बेटा सबके ये छठों चाह नहीं के सिजे टॉम में बचते दिनेचे तो के दिनेचे बचे बस उसके इच्छे दिने बचते समय के बाद ये वो ताते तब सोचते माथा बाथों में जैसे ताथों the topic is the Givat teaching in the topic is the Givat Chavina and the church of the sensing and the mother of the same. The big church of the same. The church of the same that was the church of not whom they went to the Shara is one I think it sent it over to Sente Katichi Suna didn't so take it in the dinners of the Niroka, Pamija Snoso, Nakana Mala, the Jones of that day. Don't you say the Oda Roger? Said the Jedi, said the Norajona, and that's a big dinner. Teaching so taking back Nino Inada. And then Lucia did the Jana and the Pamela Snow, Timothy taking it in the Snow, Nakika, whatever. Sona also Chiba in the Nakika, and they will Sona Sagi, dinner of the name of Pamela Snow, Nakano, that the name. Kushwala Kuma, the biggest tonight, the mother that Suzuki, then Sikana Jabaina, and then Ruba, Rusiba, Rugi, they visit which are second to get in the team, and Mama Jabaina, and the bed. Second Mama Jabaina, so what the Gelugpa said about the big Malajavayana, said about the baby who said, Hana some people by that bed, churches some people not get the bed, and then they got us a bed, Malaka to the chief, Ruba Sitak never the churches some people not get the good, the big Malajavayana. Churches said that this is something to get the bed. Dipa Samatan Samia. Or that Dipa Tochapakaji and that also the Sankobaina and the bed. Ruda, Nachida, the decision from a new Bajana, Tokichi, new Badu, technology, Churchill said that give us from a bed, Biba, Chiba, Diba, shut up the zipper, in the story, Semiba, you are conquering nearby, you are Shadaka, but Diba, Diana, Churchill is saying it. The Potato Choy, Jimmy, the third region, the Buzzer Kitchen, but Silver Jet, the Tata, cover the Tata main on the Kitchen, the bus was seven, Silver Chicken, the same. The Jet, the big Jet, and George Saki, to get the top. And Saki, the Batabala, the
Now, in terms of how to go about developing bodhicitta, we all know that we have to first begin by experiencing or understanding the suffering nature of samsara on oneself. And through such a reflection, through such exploration, once we have gained deep enough understanding of suffering nature of samsara on oneself, then, and thus from that strong urge to be free from that for oneself, then we can extend such a concern towards others, since others are also equally steeped in such suffering as oneself. And besides that, others are more important than oneself on many grounds. Even just merely from the number point of view, also others are more important to oneself. And also from the point of view of how they have been kind to us all throughout time, from beginningless births, we can then generate a sense of more importance towards others, and that way kind of a sense of closeness towards them. And then thus through such an relation, through such an approach, we can then develop a national sense of concern towards them whenever they are infected with suffering, and then also a sense of rejoicement we can generate towards others whenever we see them really enjoy and happiness. So thus, this is the way to go about developing bodhicitta, that first we reflect the suffering nature of ourselves and then extend that to others and see the suffering nature of others, and through that develop a strong sense of concern in the form of compassion. And with a strong sense of compassion being familiarized again and again and develop further, then we can eventually see that no matter how much we wish others to be free from suffering, we ourselves lack the ability to effect that, to make that happen. Because through reflection on our own ability, we can see that we lack the ability of even making oneself fully happy and fully joyful. And thus the question about making all other sentient beings happy and really, adorned with lasting joy and happiness is completely out of question. So through such an understanding of one's own inability at that moment, no matter how much strongly we wish others to be free from suffering, then we will eventually see how the attainment of Buddhahood, a state when we will be completely free from all the two obstacles, all the two obscurations, one to liberation and other to omniscience, that through the complete elimination of these two abstractions and full development of the qualities of love, compassion, skillfulness, wisdom, etc., that we can then eventually be able to benefit all sentient beings in the ultimate sense without any shortage of ability or shortage of insight from our part. So in this way we will develop a conviction that it is the attainment of Buddhahood by which we can fulfill this aspiration of bodhicitta, by which we can fulfill this aspiration of freeing all other sentient beings from suffering. Thus we will wish to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, and this is bodhicitta. In Bodhicharvatara by Shantideva, there he says that once one has exerted the efforts to the point of developing bodhicitta, from that point onward, one has become a completely transformed being. One has become a being worthy of respect, not just by the humans, but even by the celestial beings. All over the samsara, one has excelled from all ascension beings in terms of one's own spiritual achievement, in terms of one's own spiritual development. And then from that point onward, all of our activities, all of our actions issuing forth from our body, speech and mind will be conjoined, will be influenced by bodhicitta. And thus, even our sleep and our, distractions, all these will be influenced by bodhicitta. And thus, even during those occasions also, we will be accruing nothing but positivities. And thus, we gain the strength of positivity to the point that it will outshine all of our past positivities, and that they will gain such a strength that they serve as a big inferno, as a big flame that is capable of burning, consuming all scale of negativities that we may have accumulated in the past. And thus, from the point of developing bodhicitta, we'll become a completely transformed person in the sense that all throughout our time we'll be accumulating positivities, and all of our negativities that we have accumulated in the past will have been consumed. Thus, that paves a pure way to the eventual advancement to the attainment of Buddhahood.
Madhata Shivaji Tata Luma Pusetting Kitapa Pusetting and the Sigma and Luma Pusetting the Shivaji with the Kamataja the Luma and the Kabachin Kata repair the kitchen Papa Shivaji to the Shivaji kitchen and the top of the that was so much in the say as the way but they came together. And then they made a chimano with the teacher. In the college, and the
such a strength for ascribed to bodhicitta is again due to its being rooted in universal compassion, the great compassion. And in terms of the accumulation of merit through the cultivation of great compassion and bodhicitta, it is said that the amount of merit accumulated from an instant of developing genuine universal compassion and genuine bodhicitta is incalculable. It is as vast as space. And in this regard, we find accounts of how Acharya Asanga spent 12 years in meditation to have a vision of Buddha Maitreya. And it was only after 12 years that he was able to see. He had to exert so much through those years, but still he could not have a vision. And later he was almost losing his heart and came out of his meditating cave and was walking in the town. All of a sudden he came across a female dog which was infected by maggots on the lower part of the body. It was being eaten away by thousands and thousands of maggots, maggots, and he felt so compassionate both towards the maggots and also towards the female dog, and was wondering how to relieve both the maggots and also the female dog, which was being tormented by these maggots. But at the same time, the maggots themselves are so delicate that if he were to pick them out with his hand, they would be instantly killed. So he was strongly motivated by compassion, but was wondering how to save both. And then, out of strong compassion, he felt ready to cut a piece of his own body, piece of his own flesh, and where he could, transplant the maggots from the body of the female dog, and that too by licking it out with his tongue. So, under such a strong motivation, strong compassion, he then reached out with his tongue, with his eyes closed. He reached out with his tongue towards the female dog, but he could not. No matter how much closer he went, he could not touch it. And then all of a sudden, he opened his eye and he saw Lord Maitreya there, in front of him. So at that time, he even slipped into saying to Lord Maitreya that you seem to lack compassion towards the meditators. For I have exerted so much effort all through these past 12 years, and still I could not get closer to have a vision until now. At that time, Lord Maitreya is said to have said that he was by the side of Acharya Asanga. Just from the very first day he went into meditation to develop this vision of Maitreya, except it was due to the strong, thick defilements that was obscuring Acharya Asanga from seeing Maitreya, and thus he came to understand that that very reason why he could not get the vision was due to the heavy load of obscurations, defilements that was weighing down his mental continuum, and that through the generation of this strong, genuine compassion focused towards the female dog, which in actuality was a manifestation of Lord Maitreya himself, and through this accumulation, through this development of genuine compassion, he would clear away those obscurations and was able to see Maitreya with his own naked eye. And such thus it speaks of the great strength and the great, effectiveness, the great power of genuine universal compassion, which is directed towards all sentient beings without exception. And thus, since it is directed towards all sentient beings without any discrimination, without any differences and differentiation, thus even if it is generated for a single moment, the merit accumulated is as equal as the sentient beings, which are equal to the vast space. In this regard, we find an account of a butcher that once lived in Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, where it is said that the butcher used to kill so many goats and sheep all day, and then he would stock them in his house, and thus he would kill them one by one, and the demand was so great that he would kill several of them every day. And once he took a short break and went out to refresh himself. At that time, when he returned back, he saw that his sword, the tool with which he used to kill the animals, was not to be seen anywhere. And then he looked around, and finally he found out that it was hidden under earth, which was dug by the animals themselves. And when he looked at the animals, he saw tears coming out from them, and also their bodies shivering out of fear and out of fear. And from that he reflected on how much suffering he was bringing to the animals, even before they are subjected to the excruciating pain, the process of healing, etc. And thus he developed a strong sense of compassion towards them and a strong sense of reversion towards his own lifestyle. And thus he was so moved out of compassion, with compassion, that he then felt it was worthwhile for him to end his own life rather than live his life in the way he used to do. And thus he went uphill and went on on a big boulder, a big rock, and kind of forced himself to jump down so that he could heal himself. But since that was born from a strong sense of compassion towards the sentient beings, what happened was instead of falling down and crashing on the ground, he found himself able to fly over to the other side of the hill. And at that time, there happened to be a meditator in the same area, and the meditator happened to see that, happened to know this person by his profession. And when he saw this butcher capable of flying over from one part of the hill to the other side, he thought that if that's what such a sinful person can do, then he who had spent so many years in meditation could be able to do it very easily. So he went up on the same rock and kind of threw himself down. And what happened was he fell on the ground and died instantly. So anyway, this shows us how powerful universal compassion is once it is generated within us in its pure form, and how powerful it is in clearing away no matter how strong layer of load of negativities we may have in our mental continuum. So exerting effort in developing genuine compassion and eventually developing bodhicitta is definitely worthwhile.
Shinaye, today Joshua Sabal, she don't get sick by Ina, Joshua said, I know it is. What did the Nakuchi said that Sugi for the take it up, couple changes the couple changes the
So all these descriptions about how to develop bodhicitta, beginning with the generation of universal compassion, and that too to be begun by developing a sense of renunciation or the appreciation of sufferings on oneself, and developing a strong concern over that, and developing the sense of working for freedom from suffering on oneself. So beginning from that and developing universal compassion, and eventually strengthening that to the point of developing bodhicitta. We have been discussing all this as a preparation for tomorrow evening, when we'll be going through what we call the bodhicitta ceremony. This is different from bodhisattva vow, taking bodhisattva vow. This is different from that. Here we go through the ceremony in mentally training to develop bodhicitta. Although at this stage we'll be developing it only in a contrived form, not in a spontaneous, genuine form yet, whatever effort we make in kind of even generating a contrived form of bodhicitta would be well worth, and it can be hoped to eventually pave the way for a genuine bodhicitta to be generated within us. And thus tomorrow when we go to the ceremony, we should remember the points that we had been discussing yesterday and today about how to develop universal compassion, which doesn't know any kind of discrimination among sentient beings in terms of generating genuine concern over their suffering and wishing to free them from their suffering, and how for that kind of a genuine wish to be fulfilled, Buddhahood is the only way to make that happen, and how under such conviction we should develop a strong, genuine sense of aspiration to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. or in short, to develop bodhicitta. So this is what we should remember, and when we go through the ceremony, we should try as much as possible to our best ability to mold our mind into the processes leading to developing bodhicitta, into processes leading to generating bodhicitta within our mind, molding our mind into a bodhicitta form. And once we have developed that, there are what we call the precepts, not exactly in the form of bodhisattva vow precepts, but rather precepts in the sense that there are certain conducts that we need to be mindful about, and so that we could maintain the strength or the atmosphere of bodhicitta we have through effort we have through effort we have generated. So there are certain precepts that we need to be mindful about, so that this will help maintain the bodhicitta that we have developed. And in this regard, we often hear of the four negativities and the four positivities. Among the four negativities, first comes any effort, any action that issue forth from our body, speech, and mind, which are aimed at deceiving our parents or deceiving our gurus, that is considered to be one of the negativities that can have a very damaging effect on the bodhicitta we have developed. Another negativity is that whenever we find any other human being very enthusiastic in taking up practices like generosity, patience, concentration, meditation, wisdom, cultivating wisdom, etc., etc. If we come in their way, discourage them from pursuing them, and also discourage them from developing bodhicitta and practicing bodhicitta, living bodhicitta, then that's again one of the negativities that can have a very destructive effect on our bodhicitta. And then the third is to again, deceive other sentient beings, no matter what their immediate relationship with ourselves may be. But if we are all out, we are making all out efforts without any kind of restraint to deceive others for our own selfish benefits, then that's again going to have a very strong damaging effect on our bodhicitta. And then the fourth is that irrespective of whether we know that other person is bodhisattva or not, if we happen to generate strong anger or strong hatred towards that person, and if that person happens to be bodhisattva, then that would have a very, very damaging effect on our bodhicitta. So these are the four negativities we need to be very, warned against. We need to be very careful not to engage in. And then, correspondingly, there are four positivities that we need to cultivate, that we need to develop further, so that they could facilitate the further growth of our bodhicitta. And of them, the first is that no matter what kind of circumstances we may come upon, and what kind of opportunities may present themselves to us, we should not at all engage in wrongfully claiming any kind of supernatural power. In another word, we should not lie to the effect that we give an impression to others that we are something special, we have clairvoyance, etc., etc., even if we don't have. So this kind of wrongful claiming of supernatural power, even when we do not have them, that is something very, very damaging. And so we should make effort in not engaging in them. That's kind of a restraint against such tendency is one of the positivities. The second is one should make all our effort in encouraging others in pursuing their positive path. and giving them more encouragement on their path. The third is that whoever is enthusiastic, excited over the Bodhisattva path, we should at the very least rejoice in their effort and not at all come in their way of developing that. And then finally, the fourth positivity is always try to maintain a loving attitude towards all sentient beings. If we sum it up, these precepts associated with the generation of bodhicitta can come down to one point. It is that no matter whatever circumstances it may be, we should never ever give up on sentient beings. No matter how badly they treat us, how badly they speak of us, how badly they torment us or bring trouble to us, we should never ever mentally give up on them, thinking that now this is something I cannot work for. This person is something that I cannot work for, whatsoever may be the case. If such attitude, such mental intention arises within us, that would be a case of giving up on sentient being. So that's what we should keep ourselves from happening. And that's kind of the summing up the nutshell precept associated with bodhicitta. And here, when we talk about bodhicitta and the bodhisattva bodhicitta ceremony, among the two kinds of bodhicitta, one is called the aspirational bodhicitta, another is called the engaging bodhicitta. We are talking about the aspirational bodhicitta, the initial moments of bodhicitta until we have until we have received bodhisattva vow. Until that point is called the aspirational bodhicitta, and that's what the ceremony tomorrow will be about. In terms of how generating universal compassion and bodhicitta within oneself is capable of bringing benefit to other sentient beings, this question has been raised over and over again through the years, and this is being raised even to this day in the West particularly. In this regard, Acharya Vasubandhu has very clearly stated that our development of universal compassion and bodhicitta is not dependent on whether it is bringing immediate benefit to the sentient beings or not. Whether through the generation of bodhicitta directed towards or universal compassion directed towards a particular sentient being is capable of bringing immediate benefit or not, one should not be limited to that. One's effort in developing bodhicitta and universal compassion should not be limited to that, should not be confined to that, should not be dependent on that. Rather, one should pursue the development further and further, because this development does bring practical effect on one's own mental attitude, on one's own mental, mental horizon. And through such development, the accumulation of merit, or what we call the spiritual, potential, is much greater than our usual, ordinary incidents, ordinary sense of love, compassion, tainted with attachment, etc., etc. And through the accumulation of immense merit, then the attainment of realizations in a greater form, and then the abandonment of the defilements is possible. And through that, one becomes a fully awakened being, with all the positivities being fully developed and all the defilements being completely eliminated. And thus, one is on a much better position to be of ultimate benefit to all such things. We'll break here for a few minutes.
jagar kesonde se tebe dose tebe se yashi tsaga ha tebe chido jina joba tebe hebe daga na joba tebe jeju thoba ode ta niwa machi bade ya kone se ko jeju thoga ya ta chachu ke se me na chachu ke se me na tombale to bishiro diyo ya tebe ta ina galha sano na majara so tebe yo de chachu ke se me ta na be jeju ke de ko tholo ji se de no je china do bele be chamba tebe be rupo tebe na chi doje ji che ki be chamba tebe be rapo tebe chupo tebe na de chamba na de to suma rapo tebe na ma shen drone tebe ji che no je che ki be dumbe tebe chi rapo tebe suma be rapo chupo che sumi che de yo de chamba de ge na be ne yamba be chuta to sa be kasa sa to be jiyo de suma no de pege yo ma de pege ko kasa sana mo de ge de never ji de ma de kara sa ge mo ne che ma ji na de ji che ge ne che ma ji de da changshu ge sa de be de san to no ma de da really change the day or the other be changshu ge sa da de chumbola so de be na la mi ge be na so de de ta be na de de ta ta de khabore
So far we have been discussing about the significance of developing universal compassion and bodhicitta, and we have also discussed that the merits accumulated from even a very seemingly trivial action, though born out of universal compassion and bodhicitta, is capable of accumulating immense amount of merit, whereas our ordinary actions of generosity and other positivities, although they are worthwhile and they have their own value in their own right, yet compared with any action conjoined with bodhicitta, the merit accumulated from these ordinary actions of generosity are very, very insignificant, and thus we need to remember that just as we have proceeded from the beginning practices of a low scope practitioner, building it up through the middle scope practitioner all the way up to the greater scope practitioner, when we aspire to develop bodhicitta and universal compassion. And then we see that it is on the basis of these greater scope practices in the sutric system, on these basis that we have to then gradually go up for tantric practices. And thus, the tantric practices, no matter which class of tantra it may belong to, should have the basis, should have the sutric basis in the great scope practices such as universal compassion and bodhicitta. And without them, no matter what kind of a high level visualization one may be doing, even that be in the highest yoga tantra, the visualizations will not be as powerful and as strong a practice, as significant a practice to really put oneself on the correct way to bodhicitta, to the Buddhahood. There are instances where practitioners were good in concentration and were employing that in their visualization of the meditation of deities in the higher tantric systems, yet they lacked universal compassion and bodhicitta, and because of that, the outcome from such practices is not so much favorable, such as when the great Indian master Atisha was visiting Tibet, he would every once in a while receive visitors from India, and he would check with them about the happenings in India, and the visitors would update him. And on one occasion, he was told that one of the Hevajra practitioner has recently achieved the fruit of a stream enterer. So that was completely contradictory to what the Hevajra practitioner was supposed to achieve, because through his Hevajra practices he should achieve any realization on the Bodhisattva grade, on the Bodhisattva path, rather than on the path of a low vehicle practitioner, which is what the stream entering fruit is one of them. Thus, he very clearly mentioned that it's because of the lack of universal compassion and bodhicitta. It's because he lacked the foundational practices in these bodhisattva qualities, and thus, even if the visualizations were of high level, it didn't succeed in putting him on the great vehicle practices. Not just this, there was an account in Tibet when a great meditator who had the Yamanpaka practice as its very core practice was said to have been born into a ghost in his next life, which has the external form exactly like that of Yamanpaka. And he then brought about so much harm to the inhabitants around that cave where he was meditating, and where he got born after he died, and that meditation cave, though it was very conducive, though it would have been very ideal and conducive for a meditator in terms of its environment and also the quietness and also the availability of river, whatever, all the necessities, but it became so scary a place that not even a passerby would try to go by that place. So this is a clear sign that we need to have a clear perspective of how to progress on our path, and not to miss out on the foundational practices, particularly for a highest yoga tantra practitioner or any kind of a tantra practitioner. One should have enough resource or enough development, or at least one should know that one should gear one's focus on the development of universal compassion and bodhicitta, and at least begin a session with a contrived sense of them, and then build up one's visualization on them, and then the visualizations will fall on the right place.
jaga jabu cik mencuba sini, cabai tahu kurung ikut semua lebih cabai gitu. Saya dah tadi kalau jika saya sejak jadi saya juga kamu cabai gitu. Jika tu jadi sini jadi ini lah, jadi bagian dapat cik macam lumayan macam ini छोटे के तने पे जो चीज़ न बचे ते कासा जो चीज़ न बचे चीज़ चीज़ जो होते के तने ना मतलब कि जब वो पे चंबल चंबल के ने डिजाइन से चंबल चंबल के जो ते करोन न बचे या बचे ते ये को न बचे या मानसा ते लबर ते ना जो पे apa tu sampai sekarang ni jadi mana sudah yang mana jampi kalau tidak rona tegir jampi kalau okey kita berarti kalau ramai itu jadi ramai yang mana jadi jampi kalau nanti bersama sama dengan Muncul dengan English, orang jadi capai tahu kita sangat sama kita berkata, kulit ada salah kita macam apa sama cuma di sana, tidak dan mengubah bagi JPT itu semua okey, cuma itu jauh sudah sahaja mesti sebuah ini, jadi cuma jauh sahaja melanja. Semua pengajar semua kita jadi cari. Kita tentu cinta baca tinggi, kita begini dua cuma tinggi. Kita tak muncul kesensi kita begini hati. Contoh saya nanti kalau कि करने का ये सजेता जब भी द्वार चुकी है सजे तुम्हारे तुम्हें सीखी सजे तुम्हें कुआल मर्तबा तुम्हारा सीखी ये orang yang tu तुम्हारे मर्तबा तुम्हारा सीखी तुम्हारे मर्तबा तुम्हारा सीखी साबता तुम्हारा सीखी तो सोचे ये खेले सीखी और उसे खेले जैसे ये कि सुबह में जैसे देखेंगे ना सब वाले ना बस ने मुको तो यार किसी बात नहीं देख का सब क्या सच्चे के खेलने को ही ऐसे खेलने ना खेलने मतलब ना का सब लोग कोई शिबा में शिबा तंगे से शिबा माता बच्चे से ना लोग ये उसे ना जे अर्थात सजेगा यदि लोग ये सिखाते करता तो में जैसे नहीं जैसे फचे पर नाने में से हुए से सोने साथ हुए से सोने साथ तो कारण से ना जैसे फचे पर लोग हुए से तो शिबा ता सजेगा शिबा ता सिद्धि से साथे शिरो आता ते प्रभुत्व लोग हुए जैसे जिब्बात सच्चे का जिब्बात का कथा है सुना को सोचा कि उसे सिद्धि करता है होता देंगे तो पे देंगे तो सुना तो इसी को सुनने का चाहिए उसे शिरो को भाई ना शिरो तो इसी को सोचा कि जैसा जैसा फचे बोलता लोग हुए उसे तो मालूम ना नहीं कैसा भी सजे तो प्रेती भी सियात जी कुछ चिता माता था कि किसी तुम्बा जमाता दिव्य हमारे से जब तो भजन जिले तो चलता सुसु के से कि वे भजन को नाले चलते हुए
Just as Shantideva says in his Bodhisattva Chara, in praise of Bodhicitta, he says that this mind of enlightenment is a precious jewel and it is so precious that even in response to others' harms, it is all out to benefit others. So that way, this mind of bodhicitta is the source of all happiness and joy, not just for oneself but for others. So this is how we should be able to see the bodhisattva. It is in this light that we should be able to see our cultivation of bodhicitta to be contributing to. And in this regard, as to how when one has generated bodhicitta, even one is what you call motivated, instigated to help others who bring only harm on oneself. Rinpoche recounts the story of the first five disciples of Buddha, who were the audience when Buddha preached his first sermon in Sarana. It is said that these five disciples were once born as asuras, or once born as a non-human, harmful spirit, and they were all out in bringing harm and taking the lives of other sentient beings. Particularly, that's how they survived. And they happened to come in the kingdom of a king by the name of Champeto, the power of love. And that happened to be a previous life of the Buddha. And when they came upon a shepherd of that area, they inquired about the possibility of getting fresh meat or fresh animals to live on, and that shepherd shared with them the fact that their king is very special in that he always involves himself, engages in loving actions, and he would not back down from any kind of a request from other sentient beings, even if that may cost his life. So upon hearing that, they went straight to the king and requested for fresh lives upon which they live. And the king right away gave his own life. And before he gave his life to them, he made this supplication. He prayed that when he eventually attains Buddhahood, may these five harmful spirits become his first disciple to benefit from his teaching, and may through this connection of the act of generosity, they become the first disciple of him, and may he be able to lead them to Buddhahood. And that's how they turned out to be the first five disciples of the Buddha when he attained enlightenment. So this makes it clear that when one develops bodhicitta, when the proper time comes, and when one has developed bodhicitta to the point that one is capable of engaging in such action, one is right away engaging in these things. Which is to say that actions like living one's own lives are not necessarily what all bodhisattvas have to do, but when the bodhisattvas, through the development of their bodhicitta, find themselves in that proper ability, in that proper level of practice, then they do not even back down from giving away their life. And besides that, they will always, through the force of their bodhicitta, make or transform that opportunity, that occasion, into a much more meritorious action through the force of bodhicitta. And thus, when we train in developing bodhicitta, beginning with the contrived effort in molding our mind in the form of bodhicitta, and gradually familiarizing it and making it more and more forceful and more deepened to eventually develop a genuine, spontaneous bodhicitta, one should be able to see things and react to occasions accordingly in the light of bodhicitta. And in a nutshell, when we develop bodhicitta, what we are doing is, through the force of our reflection of the kindness of sentient beings, of how we are all equally, deep in the ocean of suffering. We develop a strong sense of concern over them and wish them to be free from suffering. And then eventually we develop a conviction that it is by attaining Buddhahood by which we can eventually free sentient beings from suffering, eventually fulfill our aspiration to freedom from suffering. And through such a development, what we are doing is that we train and commit ourselves to the welfare of others. And the welfare of others can be attained through our engagement in the practices such as the six perfections. And through the engagement through our engagement in the practices of the six perfections, such as generosity, morality, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, we will be able to accumulate both the accumulation of merit and also the accumulation of wisdom. And the two combined can only make a complete path leading us to eventual attainment of Buddhahood. So, through our cultivation of bodhicitta and strengthening it through familiarization, then eventually when we feel that we are capable of taking up bodhisattva vow, then we should take and then kind of reinforce our engagement in the practices of the six perfections. Although engagement in the six perfections should not be merely limited to our having taken bodhicitta. It should bodhisattva vow. It should be engaged in even before that. But through the taking up of the bodhisattva vow, one should kind of reinforce that and kind of engage more into that. Now, to take up the bodhisattva actions or bodhisattva deeds one by one, first comes generosity. All of the bodhisattva deeds can be included, can be subsumed, condensed into the six perfections, of which the first is generosity. And generosity basically means the mental, it is a mental attitude of willingness to give away whatever is requested for, whatever is needed by others, without any sense of loss, without any sense of holding back, no matter what amount or what thing you may be parting with. But whatever you do that in action in a very pure mental atmosphere, without any sense of loss and without any sense of holding back onto that thing. And in this regard, one of the sutras called the Ten Dharma Sutra says that it is through the action of generosity that one becomes wealthy. It is through the action of morality that one is born into the higher realms of existence. Thus, it kind of subsumes the outcome of generous actions. And in this regard, generosity is an action that we need to train in, irrespective of how wealthy we may or we may not be. Because even with whatever small things we have, we can still engage in a pure generous action. And whereas conversely, even very, very wealthy people can miss out opportunities of engaging in generosity, and even whatever they may part with, they may give away. Such actions may not necessarily always be as meritorious because of the lack of integrity in engaging in them, either engaging in them with a sense of loss, or engaging in them with a sense of pride, or engaging in them with a sense of patronization, etc., etc. So, one thing we need to be very clear about the generous action is that it is basically a mental action where a mental attitude counts. A mental attitude matters more than the actual amount or type of material that one is giving, or give material or type of teaching or whatever action one may be giving to others. In this regard, there is an account in ancient India where there was a mother who had 4 other members of the family, three of her sons and then her husband. And they used to go out in the daytime for work and return in the evening, and would be by that time very hungry, and the mother would have to have meals ready for them. One day it so happened that 4 monks, mendicants, came on arms round, and the mother, out of a strong sense of generosity, a sense of giving, gave away the food that she had prepared for the 4 family members. And upon their arrival, they were so hungry, and when the mother told that they should rejoice in her action of generosity that she made out of the food that she had prepared for them, they became so irritated and agitated and began to, badmouth on her generosity, and also badmouth on the monks who came on alms round. They said that, these skinhead people, they should not be given, they are not worthy of such generosity, such a generous action. Rather, they should be given stones, they should be given thorns, or they should be sent empty-handed, or they should be given, feces, etc., etc. They badmouth it, and the mother became so worried and so saddened by that, and she was particularly concerned that they had missed out on a very unique, special opportunity through which they could have instead accumulated immense merit instead of engaging in such bad actions. So she eventually prayed intensely that may she be able to see the consequences of their bad actions with her naked eye. And it so happened that after she died, she was born in a very wealthy family with all the facilities, etc., at her disposal. And the 4 other members of our family were born as hungry ghosts that were tied to the stems of her gorgeously decorated bed. And when some visitors would come by and ask for shelter and food, she would generously give away to them. And it so happened that on one occasion, one of the visitors noticed four hungry ghosts tied to her bed, and they were kind of asking for food, alms from the visitor. The mother had very clearly instructed the visitor not to give in to their request for food, etc. But despite that, when the mother was away for a while, the visitor just gave in to their request and parted with the food to them. But what happened was that whenever they extended or stretched their hand, and upon receiving the food in their hand, either it would turn into nothing, or it would just disappear in the case of one, or it would turn into stone, or it would turn into horns, or it would turn into feces. And thus they were not able to utilize the food and consume them. And when the mother came, she noticed that, and she told them that it is through their karmic action that they are not able to benefit from such generous actions. And she rather took the opportunity in stressing the importance of engaging in spiritual practices in the fullest integrity, without any sense of loss or any sense of holding on to the things. Besides that, when we lack a sense of generosity, which is again to stress basically a mental attitude of feeling completely okay with parting with one's things when one comes upon people who are in dire need of them, without any sense of loss or holding back. And that it is not necessarily a question of how much possession you are capable of giving away. Rather, it's a question of the mental integrity with which you give away. And then, given that you have the mental integrity, the required mental integrity, and the pure mental atmosphere, then the amount can again make some difference. But basically, it is the mental attitude that matters.
non c'è chi si fa già male, non c'è chi si fa se, c'è chi si fa se, jambi si fa se, jibi si fa se, si fa, magari si fa, jibi si fa se, mata di che c'è che senso 气节给的高二的有我的气节没那现在的学习的那个从这差不多10万个ton，但是在中间那个从差的。
Now, likewise, the action, the generous action one can engage in relation not only to the lower beings or beings who are destitute and suffering, but also one can engage in generous action with regard to or in respect of higher beings and also to one's own object of veneration, such as the triple gem, one's masters, etc., etc. So the offerings that we make, they also fall within the practice of generosity. And as the account that we heard earlier, one should engage in generous action, no matter whoever it is directed to, not necessarily always to the monks, but whoever it is directed to, particularly those who are in desperate need of the help. One should engage in them with utmost integrity as possible. And again, in terms of generosity, it is not always confined to material gifts. One can engage in generosity by sharing Dharma and also by giving security, say in life, security of life or security of any kind that others are desperately in need of. And also one can be generous in terms of one's loving actions. And the sentient beings who are desperately in need of love, who are desperately in need of care, if one extends love, much needed love and care to them, that's also a type of generosity. So keeping in this mind, one should engage in generosity in accordance with the situations and occasions, circumstances that present themselves to one, and should engage in them with the utmost integrity, as we heard earlier, without any sense of loss, without any sense of pride, without any sense of complacency, rather with a genuine sense of care and love and giving to whoever it is directed to. And again, the reason why Buddha taught generosity in the very beginning of all the 6 perfections, and why he taught generosity in the very beginning as the deeds that Bodhisattvas should engage in, or in other words, why do the Bodhisattvas take up generosity as the first action to engage in, first deed to engage in, is because that without wealth, ordinarily, without wealth or without any resources, particularly say resources for sustenance and also resources for carrying out one's missions in the life, one can hardly engage in any dharmic action. Say if one is too destitute, then one would be hard pressed to look for means of sustenance and can hardly think of taking up Dharma practices. One would be desperate in taking up all means possible to look for the means of sustenance. So it is on this account that generosity is taught first, so that would have the outcome of wealth for the sentient beings. And once there is the required amount of wealth, then it allows for Dharma practices to be taken out with ease of mind and with ease of body. And it is because of that generosity is taught first, because generosity is the main cause for one's wealth, for the abundance of wealth in one's life. And the reason why morality follows after that is that although with one's generous actions one is born with wealth, but as soon as one lacks morality, ethical actions, ethical practices, then the vision of that generous action will be very easily exhausted. The wealth that one gains from one's own generous action will be easily exhausted, easily consumed, and then one will again be plunged into lower ranks of existence through the lack of morality. And thus, so that we would benefit in a long term from one's generous action, there is a need to taking up morality, the ethical practices. With the ethical practices, one would be born in the higher ranks of existence. And then with the wealth to one's own generous action, the two combined can then put us in a better position every next life. And thus, Bodhisattva is brought closer and closer to fulfillment of his or her initial aspiration to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's the reason why generosity comes first and is followed by morality. And usually it is said that even among the Nagas, there are some who are very, very wealthy, and whose wealth can exceed much more than our wealthiest human beings. Yet, because of their lack of morality, they are born in the lower realm of existence as animals, since Nagas are included within the animal realm. And because of that, their vision of generous action will be exhausted within their life, and then they will have to suffer a series of lower births because of their lack of morality. So it is very important that we should be able to see these practices in their proper perspective and appreciate their significance properly. Control and judge how one's generous action is going to affect that person. If that's affecting him or her adversely or badly in the long term, then even though one should not waver from one's genuine sense, genuine wish to be of help, but one should not engage in that generous action. Say suppose somebody is asking for poison, and you know that that's going to kill her or kill him, and then eventually, and benefit nothing in the long run, then one should not engage in that. Whereas if, like when the doctors have to cure some patient, that they would not care about the immediate pain that they bring to the patient through the use of needle and through operation, etc., because they know that that the long-term benefit is greater. Likewise, when we engage in generosity, we come upon people who are asking for help, and we see that in the long term, if it's going to benefit, one should then go ahead and engage in the action, even if in the short term, in the immediate term, it's going to be of some harm, etc. But one thing to be very clear is that no matter what the judgment comes out to be, one should not waver from a genuine sense to be of help without any sense of loss or without any sense of holding back. One should be kind of completely giving, yet in terms of actually giving it physically, one should judge how it is going to affect that person.
Sabah